When I tell you we don't have to argue with these folks anymore, we don't have to argue with these folks anymore.
Wars were widespread across America. From the East Coast, Virginia, South Carolina, New York, to the Midwest, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, and the South, Louisiana, Florida, Texas, the Moors were a significant yet often erased part of American history. Their presence was hidden under legal classifications such as Negro, Mulatto, Indian, or Turk, but their influence remains in trade, architecture, resistance movements, and spiritual traditions. List of cities and states where Moors were historically present in America. 1. Virginia, Jamestown, Richmond, Norfolk, one of the earliest locations where Moors arrived, often as enslaved or indentured laborers. 1705 Virginia slave codes erased distinctions between Moors and other African-descended peoples. Some Moors petitioned for freedom using Moroccan-American treaty protections, but were often denied. Norfolk and Richmond had notable populations of free Moors who were artisans, shipbuilders, and traders. 2. South Carolina, Charleston, Georgetown. Charleston was a major port for enslaved Moors, many of whom came through Spanish and Portuguese trade networks. Some Moors gained freedom and land ownership due to their military service or skilled labor. The Gullah Geechee people in South Carolina and Georgia retained Moorish cultural influences in language, architecture, and traditions. 3. Louisiana, New Orleans, Baton Rouge. Under French and Spanish rule pre-1803 Louisiana Purchase, some Moors lived as free people of color. Moorish architectural influences are visible in the French Quarter. Many Moors were musicians, blacksmiths, masons, and traders, contributing to the Creole culture. Spanish laws sometimes allowed Moors to buy their freedom, as soldiers in the Spanish army. The Seminole Nation included Moors and African-descended people who resisted U.S. expansion. Moorish and Berber influence is evident in Seminole resistance strategies and dress. 5. Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. Philadelphia had a strong community of free Moors, some of whom were merchants and seafarers. Court cases in Pennsylvania reference Moors who attempted to claim Moroccan protection under the 1786 Moroccan-American Treaty. A hub for abolitionist and Moorish identity movements. New York's port cities were major centers of Moorish sailors and traders. Some free Moors were labeled as Turks or Portuguese to avoid enslavement. New York's underground railroad networks had Moorish connections, with seafarers helping fugitives escape. Moorish architectural influences are present in early New York buildings. Massachusetts, Boston, Salem. Boston was home to Moors working in maritime industries. Some Moors were recorded as sailors, ship captains, and traders. In Salem, Massachusetts, early census records list Moors separately from enslaved Africans. 8. North Carolina, Raleigh, Fayetteville. North Carolina had Moorish-descended people among the Melungeons of the Appalachian region. Some Moors were misclassified as Portuguese or Indian to avoid enslavement. The Ouachita Moors have ancestral ties to North Carolina and the southeastern U.S. 9. Illinois, Chicago, Peoria. Chicago became a major center for Moorish identity movements in the early 20th century. The Moorish Science Temple of America, MSTA, founded in 1913 by Noble Drew Ali, had a strong base in Chicago. Many African Americans in Chicago had Moorish ancestry, particularly those migrating from the south. Michigan, Detroit, Lansing. Detroit was a major hub for Moors in the Great Lakes region. Some Moorish mariners and traders settled in Detroit due to its proximity to Canada. The Underground Railroad was active in Detroit, with Moors helping enslaved people escape to freedom. Moorish Science Temple membership flourished in Detroit in the early 1900s. 11. Ohio, Cincinnati, Cleveland. Cincinnati had free Moors involved in trade and blacksmithing. Cleveland had a growing Moorish community in the early 1900s with strong ties to the Moorish Science Temple. Some Moors in Ohio were labeled as Indian or mulatto to avoid reclassification into slavery. 12. Tennessee, Nashville, Memphis, Appalachia. The Melungeon community in Appalachia has Moorish and Berber ancestry. Memphis and Nashville had Moorish merchants and craftsmen in the 19th century. Some Moors migrated to Tennessee after being freed in the north. 13. Missouri, St. Louis, Kansas, and Comanche. San Antonio had Moorish-descended people involved in ranching and trade. Texas, Houston, Galveston, San Antonio. Spanish Texas had free Moors before U.S. annexation in 1845. Some Moors lived among Native American tribes like the Lipan, Apache, and Comanche. San Antonio had Moorish-descended people involved in ranching and trade. 15. California, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Oakland. Some Moors arrived in California via Spanish Mexico, avoiding us racial laws. San Francisco and Oakland became centers for Moorish science movements in the 20th century. Moorish architecture influenced some early buildings in Los Angeles.